stream. That means my job's done. And people are going to start hearing this.
Yes. Awesome. Well, I'm watching on the thing right now, so we'll see.
And hopefully everybody can hear our audio. Somebody comment and say, yes, you can hear all of our audio. This is Ben.
Yep.
Nick.
We are aware we're live. Hi, everyone.
Yes. We just want to make sure everybody can hear us. All right.
So quick sound check from Matt as well then.
Yeah.
Go, go, go. All right. Should we do introductions first?
Yeah, go for it. It's
All right.
you.
So, first, I'm Ben Stegink. I have been doing SharePoint for a long time. 13 years or so, Office 365 for 6 years. Own my own company, Intelligink. Have a podcast, the Microsoft Cloud IT Pro podcast. If you want to go check that out, all IT Pro related Microsoft Cloud stuff. So, Nick?
Hi, everyone. I'm Nick Brattoli. You probably recognize me from these other conferences like this that we do. I've been working in SharePoint and Office 365 a little bit over 10 years. Same kind of thing. Also independent. Own a couple companies doing similar things as Ben. Ben and I have actually done projects together. Matt?
Thank you. So hi, I'm Matt Weston. You probably tuned into my session earlier on when I went on a complete rant about emails. I've, again, been using SharePoint and Office 365 for quite a few years. I have my own company as well in the Midlands, and I run a number of user groups which are now all being offered virtually. So, yeah, there's me.
Yeah, and I've done projects with Matt. Have you done projects with Matt, Nick?
I have not.
Oh, you're missing
no,
out.
I've done Collab 365 stuff with him. So I guess that's about as close as we've gotten.
So yes, we've all worked together in some form or fashion. So should we get going with the questions? I think we decided I'll read out some questions and then we'll all kind of chime in. We may feed off each other. We may just kind of round robin the questions, but we'll get through as many of these as we can.
Yep, sounds good.
So first question we have is from Joanne, and she was curious about, is there a way to add a tab to all teams at once? So it sounds like bulk update. I have 50 teams. I want to add a tab to all of them. Can I do it?
Let's not all speak up at once.
Yeah. Hey,
so
Matt, you were looking at this when we were talking about this before we even started. I think Matt has the answer.
Yeah, so there's no way of doing it through the user interface, unfortunately. You can do it programmatically. I believe that it is available through the graph. So you can call the Microsoft Graph API, and there is, I'm just looking for the actual reference now, there is an endpoint you can call to add a tab to a channel. So if you can loop through those channels, then you'd be able to add tabs to each one individually.
All right. Go hire a developer. Excuse me. So Steve had the next question. He said, with there being such a wealth of third-party and Microsoft apps being available through Teams, so I'm thinking this is extensions, third-party, or Microsoft ones, are there any that we use that we think are a well-kept secret? Do you have a favorite one, Matt? Or Nick? Nick hasn't talked. Do you have a favorite one, Nick?
So I'm going to probably be, I don't know if I'm going to be different than a lot of organizations, but I like the out-of-the-box function a lot more than that. I don't use a ton of third-party apps and Teams. Like, we don't use bots or anything. We heavily just use the collaboration features and the video, but we run our whole company on those things. Some people like to use other things beyond Planner, like if you want something else for task management, like Trello or something like that. Those all exist, but I really don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer for that question.
No, I think I've got to agree, really. I do like the out of the box. There's a few apps that are coming through now that seem to just enhance some of the key things around governance. There's quite a few tools that seem to be being released at the moment or being trialed by Microsoft. So I don't know how much I can say about those. I'll name drop a couple. So I know ShareGate are looking at some stuff around that. And also a company called Powell, who are in Europe. They are coming up with a new way both of those are coming up with new ways of generating sites with templates and naming conventions and so on. So those are my two favorites at the moment I'm playing with.
Okay, I've used a couple third-party ones. So I'm a single-person contractor. I do have a few contractors that help out every once in a while, but I don't like personally, I don't like Planner or To Do for tasks, managing my personal tasks. I have actually used Wrike, it's Wrike, and Task in a Box. They're both different task management solutions. I've used different ones at different times. They have really good Teams integration. From what I've seen in terms of being able to track both project tasks as well as pull in all of your tasks that are assigned to you. So those are a couple of my favorites. Again, like you guys said, I think a lot of it is, it's based on how your company works, what you want to do. I don't know that there's necessarily a one size fits all or like some groundbreaking app that I've seen.
Yeah, I would say so.
Another one from Steve. Well, we should let some other ones. Steve has a whole bunch of them in here. Should I keep going through Steve's, or should we come back to some of
I think
Steve's?
I think we can answer them quickly.
Okay. At the
yeah.
moment, when I schedule create a Teams meeting, I have to send the invites. Then I can go back in to edit the meeting options, presenter, lobby, etc. Is there a way to do this more efficiently?
Yeah. So part of that is your meeting settings inside Teams and your policies. As my dog bursts into the room, you can set those ahead of time and apply those policies to people. That's the only quick way I can think of where if you just, when you create the meeting, those are already your settings versus having to change them after the fact per meeting.
Yeah, I was playing with it on Windows the other day, and was it Outlook for Windows when I clicked create a Teams meeting in the ribbon, it actually popped in all the links right in my meeting invite rather than waiting to add them till I sent it out. But there's not like a user interface to set all of those. If you schedule them through Teams, does it give you all the settings too?
No.
Doesn't it? Okay, I couldn't remember. Yeah. Other than that, any insight there, Matt?
No, not at all. I've just been trialing a couple of things myself to see if there's a different way that I can actually get to it. And no, it's unfortunately only after you've actually created the meeting, isn't it? That's where all my options really come available.
Yeah. All right, another one from Steve. With the lifespan of Skype for Business coming to an end, is there a way to import or convert existing scheduled Skype meetings into Teams? I'm not aware of any personally.
No, I think you can do anything if you throw enough code at it, but not off the top of my head.
Right, because in theory you could write a script maybe to go through and do all of it, but
Yeah.
there's not like a click through the GUI. I mean, you'd probably just open them as they pop up on your calendar and update the meeting with the Teams info is the way I'd probably do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only way I could see doing it as well. I've seen organizations try to script it in the past and get it horribly wrong, especially if they've got slightly different user IDs between the on-prem versions and what they've got in the cloud. And they ended up with hundreds of recurring meetings that had owners that no one could then actually change. So they ended up having to drop all the calendars and recreate them all again. So just be aware that if you do try and script it, there are pitfalls that you can fall into.
All right. Next question from Elmarie. Is it possible to see a report about who attended or didn't attend a meeting? Were they present for the whole meeting, and where did they log in from?
Okay. Yeah. This one. So I attend a lot of Microsoft Teams meetings, like with the actual Microsoft, and they do monitor who's been in the meetings, but I don't think there's any special feature that does that. I think they're just going to see who the participants were and kind of recording it. I don't think they know if you stay the whole time or anything like that. Maybe there's some log or something, but that's all I know.
Yeah, there's a slight enhancement that I saw announced a couple of days ago where you can mark attendance in terms of the meeting, so you can mark them whether they attended or whether they didn't. But there's nothing that I've seen that's automating that, and certainly not giving you any more information beyond just whether they were there or not.
Yeah, and there's nothing in the analytics and reports. There's like user activity and device usage, but there's nothing to report around the meetings in there. So another one, I'm sorry if I can butcher names. I have names that are in here, and I'm going to do my best. Ellery said, web forums in Teams. Is there an app or a way to create or add a typical web forum in Teams. Think of something like user voice, Microsoft forums, where someone can post a comment or question and get responses in an organized manner. Teams does not do a good job, or organizational features and comment headers. In my opinion, any suggestions appreciated for forum-based functionality?
Yeah, so forum-based functionality, not so much. Well, forums, not so much. There is a similar functionality, or there was one announced at some point anyway, that Yammer can do stuff like that. That's not really a Teams issue. I know everyone laughs because Teams and Yammer have some overlap, and people definitely like Teams a lot better. But Yammer has things like that they actually, I know we're working on around like the live meetings, being able to ask questions like that. As far as a more full featured set, I don't know about anything like that. I don't think there is currently that choice.
Yeah, I think Yammer is the only option, isn't it, really? Because you've got that the functionality that you see on forums now where you can mark the best response, then that's there, and then you can pull that into Teams via a tab. But that's as close as I think as we're going to get to an actual forum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. So Jay Lee, hey all, is there a way to receive an email in a channel and then turn that into a planner task? I realize this would probably have to be quite a bit of customization in a flow, but has anyone actually tried it?
Yeah, you can go for this, Matt, if you want. I mean,
Yeah, thank you.
question.
Actually, I've not tried that. I don't think there's the trigger actually fires if an email drops in. Yeah, I'm going to have to try that, I think, and we might have to put that out as an article on the Club 365 website if we can find an answer to that.
So
Yeah,
just
sorry, go
throwing
ahead.
this out here, well, I guess maybe it's if somebody else wants to, but you could also send it to Planner first from an email and then have Planner post to your team.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Or monitor a shared mailbox. There's a bunch of ways to get an email and then push it to Teams after the fact. But having an email through Teams first, I don't know that would work.
Right. I guess the use case for that would be I post a message or send an email to Teams, and then Matt decides he wants to turn it into a task. Then you couldn't really go from email to Planner. You'd have to go to Teams first.
Yeah. You could probably do it with development, like if you wanted to do, but I'm not a developer, so I couldn't tell you exactly how. But usually if the answer is complicated, it probably means you have to throw code at it.
Yeah. All right. Another one from GA Bush. Is there a way to search for Outlook emails and team chat all at once? We have been using Teams lately, but the office manager still makes me email her files even though we can send them through Teams. Her argument is that she doesn't want to search in two places. Any suggestions?
So
Wait for Microsoft Search to include everything?
yeah,
I don't think it does yet, does it?
No, I don't think so. It would not surprise me if down the road in the near future that changed. And also, it would not surprise me. I don't know. I can only speculate. It would not surprise me if Teams and Exchange start to become more friendly as time goes by.
I have opinions on that.
Yeah. Me too. There's conversations I don't think we're allowed to have on this call. But, they probably will be closer down the road.
I have not reached your and Matt's level of notoriety yet, so I'm not privy to such conversations. So I can speak without actually knowing which conversations these are. But that's a whole other topic. That was not the question. This is getting into my opinions about Teams and email.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know of a way either to search them. I would think that they're going to get pulled together at some point in time in the future.
Yeah.
Hopefully sooner rather than later.
Some sort of, right? The calendar's already come across. Who knows how mail is going to fit into that?
All right, so here's one from Cliff. I like this. I don't know that the whole... Okay. So we have blocked users from creating new groups. Good. I'm glad. Which also blocks them from creating new teams. However, as soon as a user is assigned a license, they can click the following buttons in the client to upgrade an existing group that they are an owner of to a team. Yes, there is no way to stop it. Sorry. I got
Yep.
nothing else.
Nope, I fully agree with you on that answer.
But yes, I am glad you did block that, because that is a very good governance practice to enforce, in my opinion. All right, another one. Tim Price, what is the best way to get user interaction during a session? Forms seem to be a bit hit and miss. Matt, any insights here?
So generally, forms is probably the best way of doing it, really, that I use anyway, because I use everything that I get with Office 365. I think you can start to pull other links in, but you're creating links to take people out to other places. I mean, have you guys tried to do anything beyond that when you're doing sessions?
No, and it depends on the kind of session you're having too, right? If you're doing a live broadcast, there's that question stuff we were just talking about in Yammer. If you're doing a big meeting, you've got chat. Maybe there's side conversations going on in chat. That happens a lot in those big meetings that I go to, where you can ask questions and people move them around. But if you're just in a small meeting, you just talk. Like, you either participate in the meeting or you don't. I don't know that there's a magic bullet for that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It definitely depends on if you're doing live meeting versus just a normal Teams meeting. I wish you could get more interaction, especially in the live meetings, because the Q&A, it's okay, but there's not a lot of interaction there.
Yes.
And I think that's really where the live Teams Live drops behind some of its competitors, is that you can't have that voice interaction with people as well. So on some of the others, you can unmute them and then you can have more of that interaction with the audience, can't you? Whereas everything is textual in the live meetings.
Right. Like if nobody could unmute themselves, but if that presenter or the producer had the option to unmute different attendees if they had wanted to ask a question, like they'll raise a hand, all right, me as the owner of it can unmute you so we can have a quick conversation. Yeah. We'll see. Maybe something like that will come. Next question from Melissa. We have had a few instances of users all using the same link from an Outlook meeting to join a Microsoft Teams meeting, but have then had a split meeting with some present in one meeting room and others present in another room, but both are able to talk on the same chat instance for the meeting.
I've heard about something similar to that. I don't know if it's a bug, but I actually read about somebody exploiting that the other day, and that they wanted to have separate meetings during a meeting that we're still in one and do exactly that. And I don't know if it's a bug that you can replicate to make happen. Yeah, it sounds to me like it's a bug. I don't know if it's a new bug or if they're aware of it, but that doesn't make any sense to me. What about you guys?
No,
I've never seen that happen before. I would agree. It sounds like a bug to me.
Yeah, hasn't happened to me, but like I said, I saw somebody was exploiting it recently.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, I can't even think in my head how that works in terms of having the split meeting.
Yeah, it's like they're not letting everybody in, or it sounds like a bug. Maybe there's an issue with their tenant. I would definitely contact your support person for that.
Yeah, if that's happening a lot, open a support ticket with Microsoft, because that's a strange one.
Mm-hmm.
Either of you guys familiar with education stuff? Is there a Turnitin plugin for Microsoft Teams? And if yes, does it feed into the Teams gradebook as with any other assignment? I don't have any EDU experience, so I don't know.
No, we're missing the person who knows that today, but nope, sorry.
So just a very quick Bing search there. Yeah, there is on the Turnitin site. It does go through some Microsoft Teams integration. So I'd recommend going and having a look at the website, because it looks like there's quite a lot of information on there about it. So that'll be the best place to go.
Did you see what we did there? Nick and I just talked long enough so someone else can look at the answer for you.
Well, teamwork.
All right. Here is a loaded question. From Mary, what do you think Teams will look like and function like 3 years from now?
I think we probably all have different views of this. So I think what we were just talking about with Outlook and Teams becoming friendlier, I think that's going to happen. I think the adoption is going to be heavy. It's already starting to get heavier for obvious reasons. Everyone working from home right now. I think down the road, it's probably going to be more of like a main portal that people go to access all their information. Just more integrations coming in, more features added. Interface-wise, I have no idea. Who knows what that's going to look like? But I think it's just going to keep snowballing from where it's at.
Yep. Matt, any insights, thoughts?
I think that's the only way it can go, is that just that closer integration. I see Outlook disappearing eventually and becoming more, and just becoming another.
Now you know my opinion.
Teams is like Pac-Man. It's been around for 2 years and it's already swallowing different applications. So I see Outlook being one of those eventually. Yeah, and I just see it growing more in terms of just being more of that one space that I can go and do everything. But as long as I can do it on mobile, I'll be happy.
Yep.
There you go. I would agree. I think it's going to become that central portal. There's times I've even called it the browser for Office 365 because I think that's going to be what it is. You go there and you can do everything from Teams without ever leaving it. There's some wishes. I hope the whole being joined to multiple tenants and jumping between different tenants, whether you're a guest or being able to add multiple accounts in there. I would love to see that.
Oh, so much.
Because I have way too many Office 365 accounts and I'm a guest of way too many tenants. And frankly, it's painful. So I'd love to see that increase, but I think it is gonna turn into that place where you do all your work. My opinion on Outlook, I think it's going to integrate. I want them to remain separate enough that I can, for instance, turn off emails coming in from externally and still be able to communicate internally. That's personally my qualm about having everything integrated together, is there's times I just need to turn off Outlook to get work done. And I don't want to get a bunch of emails, whether it's spam or sales emails or all this other stuff. And I just want to have it a little bit more controlled of who can get a hold of me and communicate with me within Teams. That's my fear of
it'd be nice to have just certain emails maybe pull into it, like emails that are related to the projects that your Teams channels are for, or something like that.
Right.
Where you can, like you said, where you can curate it more.
Yeah, I want some type of control there. One from Michael. When I connect to a Teams group outside my organization, like the Collab 365 community, so a guest account, it turns off my online status indicators. It even impacts Outlook, away busy. If I disconnect from the external team, the online indicators start working again, but still seems spotty, just stays white for some colleagues. Ever see this? That gets back to my point, the whole tenant switching and all of that messes with a whole bunch of stuff. So I would say, I don't know that I've ever noticed that explicitly, but there's issues when you jump back and forth like that. And that's one of my gripes with Teams right now.
Yeah, I think it just generally gets itself confused, doesn't it, when you're switching between tenancies? So I have Teams as a soft telephone client, and as soon as I skip across into a different tenancy, for all intents and purposes, no one can get a hold of me because nothing will ring through. Because as far as Teams is concerned, I'm no longer part of that tenancy. I'm now in somebody else's.
Have you ever hung up on somebody doing that, Matt? You go to look at something in a different tenant and accidentally hang up your phone call?
I think I've actually done it with you, but I've just not admitted it.
I have done it. I gotta keep track of all my questions here. Another EDU question. We are trying to wean some academics off of Zoom, but the main feature Zoom has over Microsoft Teams is breakout rooms. I understand Microsoft is working on these now. Any idea on timeline for release?
So I don't have an answer to the timeline, but that specific example is what I was talking about with that exploit. Is they were using that bug that the other question was about to make breakout rooms happen. But yeah, I have no idea.
I don't either.
My guess is soon. They have ramped up their development on Teams in general.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this one works. One from Don. I was wondering if there is a way to save the team's messages that if the team is deleted, you have the information for the future.
So Teams messages are stored in lots of different places depending on which kind of messaging you were doing. The main answer there is archive your Teams instead of deleting them. That's going to keep your stuff longer. I don't know of any way of easily getting that stuff back after, 90 days?
Yeah, because if you
Otherwise-
save the message from Teams and that team gets deleted, it goes away because that just links you back into the team.
Mhm.
I mean, if you turn on retention policies for chat, it's going to save it in the background, but you really can't reference it then in the future because it's saved more for retention and you have to go through a whole e-discovery search to pull it out.
Yeah, the only other option you've got is you go down the third-party route, because there are some third-party backup solutions out there that claim to be able to back up the messages as well. I'll admit I've not done much with them other than read their websites, but they claim to be able to do it. So you've got an out-of-the-box options, but more so your third-party options are your way to fully extract them out.
Yeah, that would be like a nice one. So I could see an Outlook integration there where it's like save this message to Outlook or save this message to my email or something like that, where you could save a message longer than the team exists. Because that's the advantage right now of email, right? Is you kind of have control, unless there's certain policies set on when it gets deleted or not. You don't necessarily have that with a team.
So we could save that to a conversation history folder.
Yeah. Does it save? It doesn't save the conversation history, does it?
No. Skype for Business does that.
Skype for Business. I remember Skype for Business did that. I couldn't remember. I've never looked in mine to see if Teams did that. Maybe they should add that in. One from, I don't know how to pronounce, Graham? Graham?
Think
There's
so.
an extra E in there.
Yeah.
Okay, Graham, if you have a number of files and want to share them across several teams, is there a smart way to do this without duplicating the file in multiple teams' channels? We currently have a file repository to do this, but are looking to move away from that. Is this where OneDrive for Business would be used instead? Who wants it? You guys don't look like you want to answer that one.
So the way that I've done this more recently is that I've had the document stored in a single document library, but then I've used either add storage. So when you go to the Files tab, you've got the ability to go and add more storage. If you go around that route, that gives you the ability to see it as a folder. So if I go to the General, I go to Files, I'll see a folder, which will then point me to the shared document library where I'm taking the files from. Alternatively, I can also add a SharePoint document library as a tab. So we can also add it in that respect, and then that gives us the ability to have segregation between the files that are stored in the local team and also a separate tab for the documents that are stored in it elsewhere.
Yeah, I agree with Matt. Like having it in one place is fine. Personally, in my opinion, I wouldn't organize my files like that, information architecture-wise. Anyway, like I'm not sure why those are being shared between multiple teams like that. But maybe that just needs to be a link back to a SharePoint site or to one team where everything's at, rather than like duplicated everywhere. I guess it depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
So in the scenario that I've done that, it was more so based around templates. So it was all based around project templates where they needed that central repository, but they needed to be able to access that from all the different teams. So that was the use case that I had for doing it in that way. But yeah, I fully agree that it's all about getting the information architecture right.
Yeah, I was going to say I need more of a use case there too. I tend to go with Nick's is like if it's something like an employee handbook, why do you need it in every team? Put it in the HR site and just point everybody there. Which kind of goes back to what you said, Graham, of a central file repository and then link to it like Matt said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One from Brody there. Does anyone else have trouble getting notifications from non-general channels? To me, it seems like notifications are a mess unless you have the Teams client up in front of you 24/7.
I have the Teams client in front of me 24/7. It's hard, like either on my phone or I'm sitting in front of my desk. That's hard to tell. Now, if you're talking about the email notifications that get sent sometimes, half of those get stuck in my spam folder. So I have no idea. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've not noticed a massive amount. It's generally the ones that I've gone on changed the notification settings on and then not changed back. So yeah, it's not an issue that I'm massively aware of.
I've had it more. Yeah, it kind of depends on where I am too. If it's browser versus Teams client, as I'm jumping around, I don't know that I've noticed it as long as I stay in one tenant. But notifications are strange in Teams because they don't necessarily always follow the same notification protocols, I guess, that like Mac OS or Windows has. I know for a long time, and I think it's still the case with Mac OS, even if you turn on Do Not Disturb, you still get notifications. There have been some weird things with notifications in Teams.
That's a bug.
Yeah, there's some work they could do around notifications too. Byron, where do you start with a group upgrading from Windows 7 and Office 2007, no SharePoint structure, to Teams as the basis for operations?
Ooh, that's tough.
Wow.
I've done
Should
it.
we break the news about Teams and SharePoint?
Yeah, exactly. That one's tough. You kind of have to start with a specific use case. Like, do you have a specific file share or something that everyone's using? Maybe it makes sense to go look at that first and see what your everyday processes are, and then see how they would fit in with Teams, rather than just getting Teams and trying to, just take it all on at once.
Right. So, can I jump in on this one? Am I allowed?
Yeah. Yes.
So a couple things here. One, Teams uses SharePoint and Exchange a lot in the background. Modern authentication is also a big part of Office 365, which isn't supported in Office 2007. You have to be in at least 2013 with some registry changes. Should really be on 2016 or just Office 365 Pro Plus. So I think you have to look at a couple things. There's a link out there, and maybe if Nick or Matt start reading this, I can post a link where it talks about like the Teams and Exchange interoperability and what you have to have in place from an Exchange perspective if you want to get the full functionality in Teams. Kind of like we hinted at, SharePoint is the underlying structure for files in Teams. So if you're going to do anything with files in Teams, you're going to start going into SharePoint. But then even to connect to some of those files, grab them, all of that, you're going to want to get off Office 2007. I think I would actually start with your Windows 7 and Office 2007. Try to get those upgraded to Windows 10, and I would go to at least Office 2016, if not Pro Plus. And you are going to want to look at getting an Exchange in a state, whether a hybrid state or a migration to Exchange, so you can get all of the Teams functionality there, and then have that realization that as you move files into Teams, they're going to go into SharePoint sites because that's where Teams files are stored. That would, super high level, that would be my approach.
Yeah, obviously that was very, very technical. Obviously, you've got the whole adoption side around that. There's a lot of big cultural changes around just moving from the environment that you're in at the moment to taking on all this new technology. So just be very aware that you need to handhold your users all the way through that as well. So take them on that journey, get them all bought in, and then the technical side will come as a result of people all moving on that same journey together.
All right, I'm going to jump over to another question because I just happened to see it from Linda in the Collab 365 one, and this one's interesting in light of the current situation. And I saw some crazy numbers around this the other day. So Linda said, I understand the huge increase in people using Teams and the quality was downgraded to increase capacity, but why is it so slow? I even sat next to my route, connected to Ethernet, closed all windows, etc., and it's still slow. Linda, when we say a huge increase, it is massive. This is another one I can go find the article too. TechCrunch saw 1,000 times growth in Teams usage and set a new record on March 31 with 2.7 billion meetings that were hosted in Teams in a 24-hour period. Frankly, something the size of Office 365 and Teams, Microsoft did not build or ever architect to grow 1,000% over the course of a couple weeks, and to jump to 2.7 billion meetings in a single day, they're scrambling. They're doing everything they can to just keep it running right now. I can't say I don't have a whole lot other than that on that one.
Yeah, so they did slow certain things down, not just in Teams, but across Office 365. But it was things like video resolution that's coming through, and like they degraded the stuff. They didn't really shut it off. Now, if you had Teams already before and now it's massively slower, maybe that's part of it. If you just picked up Teams after this and it's running slow, that could be an issue with your network connection or the device that you have it on. There's a few things that can cause this to be slow, and it depends on what situation you're in. Are you talking about messaging or in the video meetings? There's a lot that could be causing the slowness that you're seeing. Personally, for me, I have not noticed a huge drop-off in quality from these degradations that they've put in place.
Yeah, I haven't noticed a ton, but I think it wouldn't surprise me if there's some slowness just due to the situation right now that you could see here and there. What were you going to say, Matt?
No, I was just about to say there were a few people that in my session earlier on that were bringing some interesting anecdotes of what's been happening in Teams, or what they've seen. Some of them have seen that the inbuilt document editing experience within Teams has been switched off for some people, and forcing them through other routes to try and edit the documents as well. So, like you said, Microsoft are trying to do their piece at the moment. I think it also very much depends on where you are in terms of your data centers as well. So I'm quite lucky in the UK that I've got 2 data centers that are probably about 100 miles away from where I live. And to be honest, it's still normal running here in the UK because we've got those 2 dedicated data centers. If you're in the likes of North America, or even in the Asian and Australasian areas, then you've got much more spread between those data centers. So you've got less data centers covering a much larger geographical area that are now taking on such an influx of users that they're just struggling to cope.
Yeah. Next question from Lori. Today was the first I heard of using the @ and it's @. Can you please explain why? I'm guessing the @ mention.
Yep. I love those @ mentions. I use them on a daily basis on my Teams. It's like, hey, person, an email came in through or a document came in. This person, go do that. I use them in documents. You can use them talking about a document. There's a lot of things to use the @ mention for that I think are worth it. I do it in emails, right? If you're sending an email and you've got 4 or 5 people on the thread, but you want to say something to one of the people that are in the emails, @ mention them.
Yep.
Right.
I don't know why today was the first you'd heard of it, Lori. I don't have a good answer.
But do you think it's because they've moved very much towards the Atlas mentions now? So you don't need to put an @ as soon as you start typing a name, and it gets 5 characters, then it'll start to IntelliSense it.
Possibly.
Could be.
But yeah, they are extremely useful, and obviously you can mention it in entire Teams as well, can't you?
Well, and I think some of that is hard as Teams is so big that I think there's a lot of things that can get missed from just the pure user user education side of it. I've tried to do some Teams training before, like in an hour. I mean, some companies have like hour-long Teams training. There's a lot of stuff in Teams. You could do like a day on end user training in Teams and probably still not cover all of it. There's just a lot there.
Yep.
Another one from Martin. How do you address the situation where external users are also guest users when using private one-to-one chat? It is confusing for end users when selecting the username, as we see it twice. Once with the external and once with the guest at the end of the username. Yes, it's confusing. I don't have an answer. Have you experienced this, Matt and Nick? I know I have it all the time, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
No, well, I was about to say, yeah, it's just one of those things that because I've been using it for so long, I've almost become immune to it. I just deal with it now.
Yeah, especially if you've got like a B2B setup and then also have like regular external and guest users all coming into there. It is what it is.
Yeah, that's where I wish those notifications worked better across tenants. So you would actually get notified consistently when you had a chat come in to your guest if you were in your external tenant, or vice versa if you were in your guest and it went to your external. That's another one I don't have a good answer for. One from Wendy. How do you host a live event in Teams?
So you have to have it turned on. As long as it's turned on in the settings, you can schedule them. There is some governance around there where you can set it up. But, I mean, there's a couple ways you can do it. Usually you just go to schedule a live event if it's turned on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's actually been slightly moved, hasn't it, from where it used to be? So when you go and create a normal meeting now within Teams, certainly within my tenancy, it doesn't appear as an option anymore, whereas it used to. So when I go to my calendar now within Teams, in the top right corner where it says add new meeting, there's a drop down next to it. So I have to go there now and then select a live event. So that's the way that I create live events. And then obviously you can invite your producers, your presenters, and then so on.
Yep. And if you don't have certain features available, there are, like you said, there's live event policies in your admin center too, where you can control some of those features that are available when you do go in to schedule one in terms of who can join them, if you have it open to everyone or just internal people or specific groups, who can record them, if you're going to allow transcriptions. Also, if you're going to allow schedulings. If that's off in your live event policies, you probably won't be able to schedule them. So it could be those policies there, but the way to schedule them is what Matt said, through the calendar and that drop down.
Yep. Cool.
From Michael, is there a document or guide that clearly explains the licensing requirements for Teams voice?
Probably not one. There's probably lots of documents and guides around. Probably together.
I've just actually pulled up the licensing site because I've got it bookmarked in my browser. I wouldn't exactly describe it as clear. There is a page which is dedicated to Office 365 licensing for Microsoft Teams. So that is generally where I'd look. The key thing that I normally do, though, is go and speak to my licensing vendor and get them to actually do the hard work for me.
Mm-hmm. It's almost a full job by itself in a lot of situations. You probably need to talk to a specialist.
Yeah, especially with voice, because I can think of, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. There's at least 5 different licenses I'm aware of that affect voice in Teams. And I don't know of a single page either to go to. I'm more than happy to talk about it, but I don't know of a document or guide for it. So Michael, let us know in the chat or something, or hit me up on Twitter if you want to talk about it. I'm more than happy to do that. Robin, I understand that SharePoint and Teams have multiple integration points. My team is looking to move from SharePoint 2013 to SharePoint Online within the next couple of years, and we are looking at developing a strategy that will encourage our customers to use SharePoint along with other Office 365 applications. Can you recommend some resources that explain ways the SharePoint and Teams work together?
Yes. So yeah, there's lots of documentation and videos and all kinds of things about that. Just of it is SharePoint is the storage for Teams. Groups kind of is what really holds it all together, not just SharePoint. There is a periodic table, an Office 365 periodic table that Matt Wade puts out, and he updates fairly regularly. That kind of shows where all those things touch, and I think that's probably a good starting point. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, the alternative is try and get them engaged on these types of events, because that's where you really get all the life stories and all the experience of people who are actually doing that.
Yep.
Book a call with an expert on the Collab 365 job site.
Yep.
Since we're supposed to be marketing that. Go.
I'm wearing the shirt. I did my piece.
Are you? I'm wearing a Microsoft Word shirt.
Yeah.
But if you want to ask an expert about licensing, make sure you phone Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah, because apparently Matt doesn't want to talk to you about it. I think all 3 of us are on there for Ask the Expert. So if anybody wants additional time, you can go find all of us on the Microjobs site.
Yep.
Another one from Thomas. I don't know if that's multiple words put together.
Yeah.
Or Thomasina. What are the security implications of adding apps like Poly, Planner, etc.? Our admin hasn't added them to the choices and I'm sure they will just throw the security argument back at any requests for them. I'd like to be prepared.
Now, as far as I'm aware, for applications to actually appear in the App Store in the first place, they do go through security vetting with Microsoft, and it's quite stringent. So Microsoft will have given some due diligence before just putting things into the store. I don't think the same can be said if you're just uploading third-party apps, which is one of the options that you've got. So be aware that if it is a third-party app, then there may be security implications. But if you're going through the official Microsoft channels, then you should be fairly safe. But obviously, you always check that out with the actual vendors as well.
Yep. And Planner is a first-party app, so that's one like they can't really say, oh, it's a security issue there. If it is, like it's part of Office 365. Now the other stuff, yes, that is possibly true. And if you're in a GCC or GCC high tenant, you actually can't even use those third-party apps for that reason.
Yeah, and some of it will depend on the third-party app too, because when they develop them, they essentially require they need certain permissions to various services in Office 365. So depending on what that app touches and integrates with, the security implications may change as well, just in terms of what permissions they need to various services to get added or installed.
Mm-hmm. So it's a valid concern.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely a valid concern, and I think you just have to go in and evaluate it for the different ones. But Microsoft, like I think Matt said, there's a fairly stringent process to go through. They're not just going to let anybody in. Ian, how complex is it to integrate with a current phone system on-prem?
Nope.
It's gotten easier. At least you don't have to stand up a bunch of VMs anymore. They have their direct, I'm blanking on the name of it right now. But you can essentially trunk your existing system straight into a data center. It's not plug and play. It's a project.
Now, if you have devices that already work with it, then great, if that's what they mean. My guess is they don't. They probably mean they've got an old system of some sort, maybe even like telephone lines.
That's true, I guess, because it varies. With a phone system on-prem, it could just be phones, or it could be integrating with a whole... So there are different ways to do it. You can go to all cloud voice and have phones that log right into Teams and do everything right in Office 365. Or you do have that direct routing. There you go. Thanks, Suresh. I just saw that in the chat. You have the direct routing that allows you to essentially integrate cloud voice with an on-prem PSTN.
And that's pretty much what I've got, although I've taken, my telephone is provided by another company, but it's been direct routed in. So I'm not using the Microsoft call plans. I'm using my own, just because I wanted a local dialing number rather than the ones that Microsoft can provide. And that was all very much done by PowerShell. So I think if you can work with a provider to get the actual routing into a good position in the first place, the actual integration with Teams itself is actually, as Ben said, much more simple than what it used to be. It's the stuff that's outside of your control that is the hard piece.
Next question from Richard. Within a Teams tenant, how many guests can be added? I don't believe there's a limit. I mean, you have a limit.
There is, but it's really high. I mean, how many do we have in the Collab 365 one that's just kind of shared with the world? There's like a few thousand in there.
But that's not...
or is
it?
That,
because you're limited by 5,000 members in a team. But if you're spread out across multiple teams, I don't believe there's a limit on guests. I mean, in theory, you'd hit one. The number of teams in Office 365 tenant are 500,000. And if you add 4,999 guests to each one of those, I don't know of a limit to the number of guests if they're using basic features. You can have guests that use things like MFA, and then you're limited to a 5-to-1 ratio of guests to licensed users. But I'm not aware of a hard limit, because there you're essentially talking about a limit in Azure B2B of guest accounts.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, they offer Teams free, don't they? Which is basically just a load of guests all working together in a single Teams tenancy. So they provide the mechanisms themselves. I think at one point they were talking about having a number of guests per user license, but I've never seen anything official actually come through about that. So I think that actually got dropped.
Yeah, the only thing with that is those premium features. If it's Azure AD premium features with guests.
Yep.
But I don't think there's one just on plain guest accounts. Unless there's a limit to objects in Azure B2B. It's high.
Yeah.
I saw
I
a
haven't
message
seen
that
anyone
told
hit
us we only have 10 minutes to finish. We have a lot of questions.
Yeah. Yeah, we sure do.
Anyone else interested in the toys on Ben's shelves?
Yes.
Here, I got lots of toys up there. I can zoom out my camera. There, now you can see more of them. Most of it's Legos.
Yes.
Okay, back to my quest. I lost my spot. Do you see where we were, Nick?
Yeah, it's the Julia M from like 304.
Do you want to ask it since I'm still looking?
Yeah, sure. Today I saw one staff member log in as someone else. We don't know how it happened. Anyone ever seen this before and know what would cause it? They used to schedule an appointment on behalf of the other person, and they're in the process of moving email from on-prem to the cloud. Is this the cause? So it depends. Was that person already logged in on that device and someone came up behind them and then just started using Teams? That's the only thing I can think of. I haven't otherwise.
No, I've got nothing I can actually add to that. I've unfortunately never seen that.
Yeah, it has to be based on the device or like the browser login or something.
Have you found this yet, Ben?
I see the question. I can't think of anything. I could think maybe if they used to schedule appointments on behalf of and had access to a mailbox, so maybe they could in theory like schedule a meeting, but get full Teams functionality from it. I've never seen that happen before.
Mm-mm. Yeah, that would need a deeper dive. You'd have to do some troubleshooting on it.
Yeah, you could look at the unified audit log and figure out like where they logged in from or what computer they were on. That might give you some insight because that'll trace back IP addresses and computer IDs and all of that. As big as Microsoft is since its beginning, it's been such a ride to see Microsoft apps developed and grow. But over the last 10 to 15 years, the acquisitions and overlap of apps has made it very busy and frustrating to be productive with Microsoft apps. Do you think they'll be consolidating and focusing in the coming years? Example mentioned in an earlier training, Outlook and Teams, one tool please, or just get rid of Outlook, Dynamics, and SharePoint.
Do we want to do these last few minutes as a lightning round? If so, the answer is yes.
Okay. Is there a way to stick a message to the top of all teams and institution? No.
No, not without development.
Yes. What's the difference between a live event and just a regular Teams meeting? Are there control differences for the presenter? Yeah.
Yeah, so you actually get a full different interface as a producer. So definitely worth going and looking at that.
Yeah, full Teams meeting, you have the whole voice interaction. Live event, think like producing a TV show. You got people in the background, they talk to everybody. There's no real interaction back to the presenter.
Yep.
Marion, I have a question about giving access to guests. Is it possible to give a guest access to a group chat but prevent them from doing anything else in that Microsoft team?
Maybe not from the group, but you can do what we're doing right now with our Teams chat that we have where you set up a meeting and we're just in that meetings chat. We don't have access to anything else.
Yeah, Nick, your video froze.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh.
In theory, possibly, but it's not going to be something easy to do. Is it bad practice to upload huge files to Teams? What is the optimum place that they should be uploaded to? Should it typically be files that can be collaborated on? Videos go to streams, binaries go somewhere else. Where?
I mean, there's a file limit, and they raised it, and then they lowered it back down because of all this. But what is it? It was 10, and then it went to 15, and then back down to 10. Isn't that what happened?
Is it currently 10? remember it going up to 15.
Yeah, I thought they brought it back down when they degraded everything. Yeah.
I mean, it's not bad. I tend to try to tell people not to do executables up there just because by and large you're downloading them, you're running them on a local machine. You ask where, the hard part is if you're going to go all cloud. You could do something like Azure Files. They just rolled out functionality there to do an SMB share that's permissioned with Azure Active Directory or Active Directory accounts. There's some weirdness there. I'm in the process of setting it up right now, but that would be a location you could put those bigger executables.
Yep. And blobs. You can put blobs up in Azure as well. There's
Right.
I think, a different app you can use for that.
I mean, the downside of that is if you're pulling 6 gig files down out of the cloud, it could chew up your internet connection if you're doing it a lot. You may want to keep an on-prem file server around for that. We have 5 minutes left. We're supposed to pick a win or two out of all these questions. Do you realize how many questions we haven't gotten to?
Yeah, I see that. It doesn't end. Sounds like we need to do more of these.
Yeah. We should. Hey, Mark, let's schedule some more of these.
Yeah.
Do you want to pick out any other questions? Should we pick out 2 more?
Yeah.
Do you
Let's
think
see.
Yammer and Teams will eventually become one? From Mary. I'm just going to pick some random ones out because I started scrolling again.
I would say not anytime soon, down the road probably, but they just rewrote Yammer's like entire code base. So they're probably not ready to just throw that all out yet. And they announced that at Ignite. That's not a secret or anything.
Yeah, and the amount of people you can put in a Yammer group versus a Teams group, there's still a huge discrepancy there.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see the role of AI developing in Teams over the next few years? From Matt.
Ooh.
That's an interesting one to end on.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, anyone want to take that first?
Matt has a smile. Matt, you go first.
I'm smiling because I was going to pick that one out as well. So we're on exactly the same wavelength. I'd love to see it developing more. I'd love to see to be able to hand off more of my day-to-day administration of an entire tenancy over to artificial intelligence based on the rules that I apply to it. I do as much as I possibly can at the moment using Power Automate and Logic Apps, but it would be awesome if I could just hand that across to AI and let it run it for me.
Yep. Bots and administration and Project Cortex, right? Whatever version of that's going to be out years from now, where all of your stuff is automatically tagged and you've got automated taxonomy and all of that stuff. There's a lot that AI can do to, I wouldn't say necessarily eliminate jobs, but like cut down the manual tasks that you have to do.
Yep. I'm with you guys. Automatic tagging stuff, bots. I don't know. I wonder if they could do something with conversations to help highlight certain conversations that you should see using AI or conversations that are relevant to you, kind of like they do with files in SharePoint.
Yep.
All right. Who wants to pick? Are we supposed to pick 2, Mark? I'm watching the collab chat. Are we supposed to pick 2 questions that are winners?
Yeah, don't forget we have about a 10-second delay.
As we sit here quietly watching, waiting for Mark.
Yeah, come on, Mark.
Yeah.
All right, pick one. Hey, Matt, should we give one? We know we have at least one. I think the AI question, I like that last one.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
Matt?
AI question and maybe like our Teams and Exchange going to connect later or how
connect. Okay, we'll find who answered that one. One for Ultimate Bundle.
Yeah.
So the AI one for Ultimate Bundle, and then the All Access Pass, the Teams and Exchange come together. We
What
have all of those in here, and
I think they are. Yeah.
All right, there you go, Mark. We can work with Mark to figure out who asked those questions. But Matt and whoever asked the Exchange and Teams question, congratulations. You guys have won an Ultimate Bundle and an All Access Pass, respectively. So I think that's it. That wraps up our time. I'll stick around longer if we want to, but I don't know what everybody else's schedule is. Oh, there's a special message coming up. So Helen's going to kill this and go to our special message. So thanks everyone for joining us. We'll try to do some more of these.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
That's great. Take care, everybody.